So, Joe, we just got done giving our two keys for what each team has to do in the national championship to win. Now let's give our actual preview of the game. What do you think is going to happen in this game, in this national championship coming up on Monday?
I would be the biggest asshat in the world if I didn't continue to ride the Huskies. They have been the vibes play for me all year long. They have found ways to win. They're gamers. Even when their backs are up against the wall, like we saw in the Texas game, they have found ways to win. The ball has just always seemingly bounced their way. More importantly than that and deeper than that, I'm going with Washington for what we discussed here with that secondary issue. Michigan has a good secondary. Will Johnson is going to be a top 50 NFL draft pick. They've got some good players in that secondary. But at the end of the day, nobody has successfully slowed down any of those three receivers. And I don't believe that Michigan has anybody on the outside that is going to be able to slow down all three of those guys. You might slow down two of them. One guy is going to get open. And that is where the leak turns into a flood, which leads to a 400-yard passing day like we saw from Penix in the first round of this playoff. Washington is just too explosive. And because Michigan, as good as they've been and as good as they could be in this game, they do not have the facilities, the capability that if they go down by 10 points and it's the middle of the third quarter, to surge back and score quickly. Texas barely had enough to do that and to get back into the game, and they still couldn't do it. Michigan just does not have the guys. They don't have the playmakers that if they go down by a little bit, this game could be over.
All right. I mean, I'm not going to combat that, okay? I don't think every point that you just made is wrong in my opinion, in my view. I don't know if this game got into a track meet if they could keep up. Like I do think that Michael
they can't at all. There's no shot that they can keep up.
But here's the problem with that. I think they can make more stops than anybody that they've seen because of the pass rush, right? I really do think that I can't necessarily envision Michigan not getting home to Penix. This, if I'm not mistaken, this Washington O-line has only given up 12 sacks all year. I would not be surprised if they gave up 4 in a national title game and was able to make more stops than maybe that they're previously or they had previously done to them, like against Oregon or whoever it may be.
Okay.
All I will say is Joe, I tend to like to lean, all right, to the team that can control the clock and run the ball better, because I do still think that Washington's defense does have leaks and issues, right? Like there's a reason that they're in the hundreds when it comes to total yards allowed, passing yards allowed. They're still in the 120s. There's still some leakage there. Like our eyes aren't deceiving us on how bad that they have been. That secondary, that front seven at times has been leaky. Joe, I do think that J.J. McCarthy is a better overall quarterback than Quinn Ewers. Sorry. I do.
Yeah,
okay?
It's a hot take.
They're
both mediocre.
It's not a hot take whatsoever. Why? But some people are going to make that a hot take. I think Harbaugh on this team is poised. I think they were down and they came back and they fought back and tied the game. And when it mattered most, they handed it off to their best player, being honest with you, in Blake Corum, and he scores. And I'm not going to pick just yet, but I do tend to lean Michigan.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Well, can I give you the reason why? Can I give you my reasoning why?
Yeah.
I have poo-pooed on Washington all year. And I am
doubling down.
I am 1-4 against Washington this year. The only time I picked them to win was against Utah. Michigan. This is the best thing that Washington can.
Oh, you're lame. You're basically trying to say that, like, Washington fans, you should be happy that I'm picking against you.
You should be glad. But I do still believe that there's an avenue clearly for Michigan to win. Joe, if they hold on to the ball for 35 minutes, if they get that running game going, they're going to be right there. Because, again, I still don't think – I think what you brought up was the most interesting thing. I did not think that Michigan would have 5 sacks and a half on a Nick Saban football team. I really didn't. Now, in the second half, they got home once, okay? Like, they cleaned things up. But that defense is really good. Like, that front seven is really good. And my question becomes, if this is the best front seven that they've seen, then what? Can they get home? Can they get Penix to the ground? And can they run the football effectively?
I think at the end of the day, though, they've at least faced good defensive lines that are not far off from Michigan's. I don't think that there is this massive line of separation between Oregon's defensive line and Michigan's, Texas's defensive line and Michigan's, Utah's defensive line and Michigan's. Yes, Michigan is the best one that they're going to face, but they've at least been physically tested by dominant, well-coached front sevens before. They've faced those challenges before this season. Michigan, on the other hand, has not seen anything remotely close to the offense that they're about to face off with. They have no idea if they have the secondary to keep up with them. They have no idea if that defensive line is going to be able to get home against one of the best decision-making quarterbacks in college football. Michael Penix has the best awareness and decision-making at the position, one of the best, what are you giggling about?
Because we just got a super chat, see? Blake, don't you dare pick UW. Stay on that side. They don't want me to pick them.
Yeah. I mean, well, by the way, so I did the opposite. I can now admit this afterwards. I deliberately picked Alabama because every time I picked against them, they won. So I realized if I picked them
for Michigan so damn hard. Pause.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look at my whole Twitter feed. Everything was about rooting for Michigan. No, I did that on purpose, and anyone can claim whatever. Look, I'm just going to reiterate this though. Michigan has never seen anything like this, and every time that we think an opposing team is going to be able to slow down Washington, we're very rudely awakened.
Well, on the flip side, this time when we thought that Harbaugh couldn't get over the hump, we were wrong.
Well, he's only won one big game, though. This is the only one big postseason game.
I mean, Penn State's still a big game. Ohio State's still a big game.
Postseason game. This is the only notable postseason game that he has won.
I mean, but here's the thing, though. He's still played and gotten to a Super Bowl. Yeah. Like we're acting like Harbaugh hasn't been
lost, though.
Sure, to his brother. The lights went out. Okay, sure, with Colin Kaepernick, I might add. All I'm saying is, let's not act as if that he hasn't been there, right? Like the Super Bowl is just as big of a moment and a platform and everything else. The whole take on Harbaugh, he chokes in the postseason. Yeah, okay, I'm with you, but at the same time, the dude's played for or coached for a Super Bowl. He just beat Bama. And Joe, for all we know right now, this time next week, we could be coming out here and saying to ourselves, hey, man, Michigan's got to do everything they can to keep Jim Harbaugh, right? You can't get away from him because he's a national champion. And Joe, they're going to do anything they can. I would not be surprised if they went up to $15 million to keep him now. I really wouldn't.
Well, it's not going to matter because he's not going to win a national championship. And he's just going to be a runner-up, and then he's going to go to the Chargers. Washington will win this football game. You said a second ago that you tend to lean on the teams that can control the tempo, can run the ball as well as they do. This isn't 2000, though. This is 2024. What teams can we look at? Wait.
Who won the last 2 national titles?
It was Georgia.
But what did they do? What did they do?
They ran the ball and they played good defense, but those defenses were a lot better than this Michigan one. More importantly, let's look at some of the other teams. Wait. Let's look at some of the other teams that have won national championships. LSU is an explosive passing attack. But they can control the clock. That's what I was going to say. Ohio State was an explosive passing attack.
No. Don't get that shit twisted. What people get twisted about, that 2019 LSU team, Joe, they will milk the shit out the clock if you let them. Burrow would not allow it to happen.
Washington could do it too if they need to. They just made a couple stupid decisions that were unrelated to milking the
Derek
clock.
Stingley, Grant Delpit, Patrick Queen. They also had 9 dudes on that defense that got drafted and are right now starters. Like, again, I get what you're trying to say here, but don't act as if that this old school style of football can't win. Wait, Joe.
I'm not saying that it can't, but my argument here is that when I have used that conversation point before too. I have said the same exact thing, and I've made the same statement that these old school run the football type of teams are just what's going to help you win. But I feel like every time that we talk about that with a Michigan and Alabama and Georgia and all these teams, we wasted so much time talking about them. We didn't even bother to pay attention to the things that Washington has done. They're so unique is what has made them so difficult to stop. And it feels like most years, except for the 2 Georgia teams, the teams that have won the national championship have had unbelievable, ridiculous offenses, elite receivers, good quarterback play.
I get what you're saying. Let me just add on to this at the end because we got 2 super chats in here. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, I do agree that is an easy possibility that can happen. Okay. But I also understand that it's an easy possibility that we look up into the fourth quarter and Blake Corum's got 18 rushes for 155 yards and 2 scores. Like, I think that that's also as easy big of a possibility, right? Like, hey, man. Hey, that they can run the football on this defense, and I think that you know that.
Like, no, I do.
Because look, don't let what Texas did in abandoning the run discredit that this team is leaky in the run game.
No, I know that they are, but I just, like, if they go down and score, all it takes is one or 2 bad Michigan drives.
I don't think Harbaugh will get rattled like Sark did.
I don't think he will either. But
look, that's why I think they won't abandon the running game because
they're not going to be perfect though on every single drive.
Sure, I didn't say. God bless. I didn't say that.
I know you didn't. My whole point is that even if they run the ball well, they still have to play defense.
Sure, but the teams that normally control the tempo, Joe, because let me tell you something. If you get a well-rested Michigan defense that, hey, man, our offense just had a 6-minute drive. We've been on the sideline. Let's say they deferred the second half. They have the last possession of the first half. They deferred, okay? They get the ball back coming out of halftime, and that defense hasn't played for 30 minutes and is well-rested. Then what? So there are – you know what? You know who exactly that happened to? Literally Michigan yesterday. You want to know how Alabama came back? They kicked a field goal. The defense was on the sidelines for well over 35 minutes of real actual time. They come back. Joe, what happened in the third quarter? They got blanked. Okay, in the third quarter. They had 23 total yards in the third quarter, did Michigan. So
wait. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like that bad third quarter is proof that they're going to stall at some point, and if they stall, they can't catch up.
But you know who else that happened to until the very end?
Who?
Washington. How did Texas come back from 14 down?
They made a bunch of stupid dipshit, very simple, stupid dipshit mistakes. It's not like they ran the clock down. They ran the clock down as far as they could run the clock down. They did an effective job of it, despite their limitations of running the ball. And they did it. They couldn't help the fact that Dylan Johnson had to come off and the clock had to get stopped because of that. And then on top of that, their dumbass long snapper running into the kick returner. Those are simple mistakes that would never happen in another football game.
They can be simple all they want to be, but when you continue to make them throughout the year, they're not simple anymore.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, where the game starts.